what it really comes down to is being able to work in an environment where you can have that nonpartisan perspective while also being able to keep confidentiality. So whether it's in reference to my experiences in clinical practica with the psychology department, or just having that objective perspective from my research background, so that we're ensuring that it's not necessarily a matter of dealing with, or rather assessing people on subjective qualities, but really identifying core competencies for individuals, sort of like Christina did 2 years ago, and then expanding that into an appropriate hiring question pool that we can reutilize and refine.
Okay. Hackett?
Sorry, hello. So question, a large part of the VP admin role is managing numerous PTM services and interacting with students and volunteers on a daily basis. So how will you ensure that you are being open and receptive to feedback while in the role and creating a welcoming environment for people to come in and speak to you?
For sure. So one thing that I've indicated in my platform is that I have a rather ambitious plan to have weekly check-ins with every PTM, whether it's visiting the spaces in which they offer their services or ensuring that they have an open channel of communication for at least a portion of the day so that we can make sure that there's a constant communication. That won't necessarily be the exact same process during COVID-19 changes, where it will definitely have to shift to more of a video chat or regular phone call basis so that we're ensuring that line of communication is open. I think one of the biggest support errors that I see when it comes to PTMs as well as students is navigating the bureaucracy relating to the MSU and really understanding where the roles fit in. So one of the bigger issues that I've seen in various service reports has to do with roles that need redefinition or opportunities for collaboration between various services to really engage students in an appropriate and effective way. So I think what it really comes down to is delivering training in a way that's engaging and interesting, while also encapsulating a lot of the elements within the MSU structure and some of the procedures that can really benefit students that are going underutilized. So I think that's really my main goal, to help students and staff members feel safe and supported.
Miranda?
Yes, thank you. As support is such a large aspect of the role, and VP admin supervises the most staff out of the mod. Can you please highlight your philosophies and strategies surrounding supervising, training, and supporting your staff?
For sure. My experience with education has definitely taught me a lot of valuable lessons in regards to leading with respect rather than fear, for one, and also making sure that there's an open access to educational resources and that the stream of communication allows for all information to be shared in a genuine and honest way. So to ensure that people are feeling supported in their roles, I think it's really important to guide them, one, to the human resources generalist, as well as any other staff that may be added to the human resource portfolio, so that we can ensure and support people along the way in accessing the resources that they need to succeed. I think it's also a matter of increasing the formality and regularity of performance reviews so that we can really assess, okay, what areas do you feel the most supported in, and where do you feel like your resources lie? So we can genuinely improve the access that people have to resources just by a matter of increasing their education of where they fit within the huge mess that sometimes is formed through MSU struggles and structure. So I think in supporting PTMs and various other occupations within the MSU, it really just comes down to ensuring everyone has the right support to pursue their dreams.
Dahab?
Hello. Hi, Graham. Good morning, everyone. Quick question. So last year, for example, like the MSU ratified the Dominion Society MAC also released a freedom of expression policy. We also know there's like issues of like police violence on our campus. So given all of these things, I'm curious about how you plan to like talk about, deal with like just like racism, anti-Black racism, and creating like plans, like tangible plans to create safer places for like racialized and Black students on campus.
For sure. I think there's definitely an opportunity to work with a VP Education in pursuing, well, if it ends up being FASIA's platform, to ensure that we're really advocating and educating students in regards to equity issues on campus. As well, there are many services, especially diversity services and WGEN, and as well PCC over the last year, who've been focusing particularly on racialized populations within the university campus. So I think it's really just about pooling resources with those individuals and those parties to ensure that we're pursuing the appropriate pathways in making sure that we're advocating and educating students in how to appropriately, address some issues related to systemic issues for students in racialized populations. So one of my main goals to do with the education platform is incorporating multiple metrics for reporting as well as education on various forms of inequality. So whether it's explaining the land acknowledgements that we always use in a tangible way to students so they have a better understanding of, okay, well, sure, I understand that I'm on lands that I sort of inherited from people who took it over through colonial measures. But I don't think there's really a clear grasp and clear communication as to why those things exist. So that, along with many other strategies to educate the populace and ensuring that students are accessing resources effectively.
Bagastos.
Hi, Graham. I saw in your platform that one aspect of it is delaying the SRA year plans to October and then working with the speaker to facilitate this. I was wondering what your justification for the delay was and how you plan on managing that responsibility with the speaker as your responsibilities increase in the beginning of the new semester and new year.
For sure. I'm glad to talk about my platform points because I've done a lot of research, as you've seen. So in regards to shifting the SRA year plan in particular, because I know that there's 2 points to this relating to speaker as well. I noticed that when I talked to a lot of the outgoing SRA members, generally people felt like they were rushed into their year plans. And as some of you might know, activities that are placed within the year plan are the ones that will primarily be supported through MSU project funding. So it's a matter of, okay, are people feeling educated and supported in creating their projects and developing a feasible plan to achieving them? So I think when you incorporate the factors relating to how summer isn't necessarily the most productive term for any position within the MSU, and then saying, okay, you have 2 meetings within September to decide, given this is now the regular schedule for the SRA, what is going to be feasible for the rest of the year. I think there's an opportunity, given the current training structure, to push that date back so that people have a better idea of what goals that they want to accomplish most throughout the rest of their year. So whether that can be changed back in September to a September date when training has been changed is a separate question. But I think really the training and working with the speaker has always been a part of their job description. So just making sure there's open communication and working together to achieve those goals.
Okay. Do we currently have any further questions? Any more questions? Figueredo?
What do you think will be your most difficult platform point to implement?
For sure. So definitely the most difficult, but also something that I'm most passionate about, as I've discussed earlier, is implementing the educational learning management system. So I know that there are already some things in the works in relation to setting that all up. But definitely content creation and reaching out to the partners within the university, as well as community partners like Sasha, the sexual assault, I believe it's harassment or sexual assault center, Hamilton area, as well as the Center for Addiction and Mental Health, and ensuring that there's really active communication in building this content, and then working with the underground in an effective way to develop educational material, which isn't necessarily something that they're used to creating. But as long as we have that that relationship established, we can work year to year to develop creative and interesting content for students to consume. And working with the McPherson Institute to make sure that it's really the most up-to-date strategies that we're implementing. So I think it's just a matter of developing a lot of communication at the beginning of the term, ensuring that everyone's involved in the conversation, whether it's relating to services who plan to advocate for these things throughout the year, who want to stake in some of the content that we're going to be publishing, and also some of the staff who have different needs in terms of the structural knowledge they'd like to learn, whether it's SRA members and their project development, or PTMs and how to deliver peer support. So just ensuring we cover enough a range of topics.
Singh?
Okay, good morning, everyone. I hope everyone's doing well. I had a question about the Universal Training Program. So, Graham, you have written in your proposal about, how you will create a universal module system, and it'll be for staff, service volunteers. I just want to better understand kind of how you plan on implementing it and what steps you plan to take to ensure that it will actually be fully encompassing, because there are, of course, such a huge variety of jobs in the MSU, many full-time, part-time. Their scopes are so various. So how do you plan on ensuring this module system can cover the needs of all of those different jobs, and what will you do to make them specialized for each different type of job?
Yeah, of course. That's a really good question. So I think there are definitely a wide breadth of occupations within the MSU, whether it relates to employed staff, part-time and full-time, as well as volunteers. So the main goal is to start off with the full-time and part-time basis, as well as the SRA. So the 250 employees plus the volunteers within the Student Representative Assembly. And then as time progresses, so you would enforce those through, or you would deliver them through the supervisors that are in place within the MSU. So the structure is already established. And then you can incorporate them into performance reviews, which are conducted by supervisors in some of my other platform points. This is pretty typical of any corporate organization. So it's just about a matter of, okay, are we going to establish these systems in a formalized way? I know that they are already in place to an extent. There are some partial performance reviews already in progress. And so it's just a matter of extending that. So it wouldn't necessarily be the same for volunteers in all aspects, but definitely for services, ensuring that everyone's on the same page. But in terms of making it refined to different individuals, my plan is to start with those individuals and then work towards volunteers, whether it's in services, as peer support or other volunteers, and then expand that to club executives as well. So you would work through a sampling system where you would say, okay, you only have to do this number of modules within this sector. And then you would say, okay, you only have this many years of qualifications for that, and then cycle through multiple rotations.
Thank you.
Okay. And that is the end of our question period for Graham. So thank you, Graham, for attending. And now we're going to be moving on. And now we're going to be moving on to the second candidate in our question period, which is Annika. Annika, you here?
I am. Sorry, my computer glitched out there for a moment, but I'm back.
Oh, not a problem. Here we go. You all ready? Do you need me to explain the question period again to you, or would you like, or you think you're just good to just jump right in?
I think I'm good to go, and having the 10-second countdown would be great. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. So, Figueredo.
Hello. So my question for you is, where do you think you'll need the most support in your first 4 months in the role?
Yes, so I think where I'll need the most support in the first 4 months would have to be within SRA training. I think when we look at the role of VP admin right directly at the get-go is that they're heavily involved in SRA training as well as with organizing Welcome Week. And I think both of those points are going to need a lot of attention this year, just given the situation surrounding COVID-19. And that I think also when I look at a lot of my experiences, I think while I have been made like a lot of intention to be involved with the SRA and like keep up to date with it throughout like my entire undergraduate experience, I don't have a lot of direct experience with the SRA, and that I think like working with the SRA speaker to make sure that I feel comfortable like taking on the role of deputy speaker if need be. I think also like continuing to consult with full-time staff such as Victoria Scott, who have been within the MSU for years and just have like such a wealth of knowledge that I can pull upon. I think it's also important to note that when you're in a vice president position, you're not alone, and that you are within a board structure, and that there's other folks within it that we can pull from support, and being able to communicate that and being able to be comfortable asking for help or asking for feedback when I need to. In my consultation that throughout like this process, it has come up that it can be a very flexible role in terms of the BOD, and that if one person needs extra support in one place, we can kind of shift around some responsibilities if need be.
Okay. Johnston?
Hi, Annika. One of your platform points is pertaining to planner equity. To play planners cost around $65,000 a year. Do you have any idea about where those funds would come from?
Yes. So from some of my consultations, it did seem that there has been some money that has been pocketed to the side to look to use in terms of like paying planners. I think also that we can look at how we can reevaluate some of the funds of Welcome Week in general. I think from my experience at the SSC, I got to see a lot of where funding's going in supporting students, and I think we can reevaluate some of that and making sure that when we're looking at those costs that we're being more effective and making sure that we're putting the most money in how we're going to support students in the best ways, and that reshifting some of those funds that we have from WAC, from the advisory committee, and putting that towards planner equity. I think we can also look in having some conversations with faculty departments as well in terms of seeing if they can go and add in some additional supports. It has been a movement that's been going on for like the past about 3 years or even longer than that. So I'm definitely not alone in this, and that there have been a lot of plans kind of set in place as we're going along. So I think it's just like kind of finalizing that and making sure that we're being fair to all of our planners, because I think when we look and compare residence life towards our faculty planners, and that making sure that we are acknowledging the work that our students are putting in. And that I think also when we look towards planner equity, it'll also be helpful in terms of making sure that the hiring process is standardized across the faculties, which I think is going to be another battle, and just working towards that.
Egbiyemi? Okay, I'll be reading Egbiyemi's question due to audio issues. How do you plan to address the possibility of accessing some services online, as your platform was largely related to the training of those involved and not to the receivers of the services?
Yeah, I think that's a really great question. So thank you for asking that. I think this year actually with COVID-19 it is actually in some ways going to be a challenge in shifting online, but I think in some ways it is also a silver lining, in that a lot of the changes that we can make to our providing our services online can be a more long-term change. I think when we're looking at different faculties and different students go on global exchange, they go on placements, internships, and it's important that we continue that support even if they're physically not on campus. So I think when we look at some of our peer support services, we can look at providing that peer support from an online anonymous format. We can look at having group support. Maxis is actually already doing that this year. So I think we can build off of that and look how we can implement that through other peer support services. I think we can also look at implementing more live streams. And also, I think in the online format is that it can potentially introduce ways of having more personalized and catered support when we're looking at potentially having more one-on-one support. And I think also just like in general, putting more of our resources online. I think having our advocacy efforts and putting that online, making sure it's in an accessible format that's also like screen reader friendly, so that students can continue to access that also like for years to come. But I think it is something that we're going to have consultations with those services specifically and seeing where they see their support shifting online.
Okay. Al Young?
Hi, yeah, this is a question we got from a constituent. How will you support peer support and identity-based services given you may not identify with these communities?
Yeah, that's a really great question. So thank you to the constituent for asking that and for you for sharing that. I think first of all, it is important to acknowledge my privilege in my identity and being able to acknowledge where my experiences may be limited, and that when I'm going and speaking with part-time managers or working with services, to acknowledge that I may not always have the most knowledge on it, and I may not have the most nuanced background, and being able to value the knowledge that those folks are bringing in and appreciating that equally. I think while I have experience as a part-time manager, that experience isn't all-knowing, and I think it's important to acknowledge that folks are going to come in situations where they might have more knowledge than I do. I think also that we need to make sure that in the position of Vice President Admin is that I'm not using that role to speak over others, and rather using this role and this this power in this position to actually help empower others and making sure that their voices are being heard, and helping them support, helping the peer support and identity-based services support their communities the best that they can.
Okay. Now we have Samson.
Okay, hi Annika. A lot of your platform rests on making changes to the MSU services and PTM related objectives, which impact students that are already deeply involved within the MSU. I was wondering, how do you plan on engaging students that are not as involved in the MSU, for example, encouraging people to run for the SRA and create systematic change?
Thank you. That's a really great question, because I think the actual engagement and outreach that we have from the MSU side is a point that we need of improvement. If we look at voter turnout for the past couple of years for presidential campaigns, it has been gradually diminishing. So one of the things I want to do is actually encourage our part-time managers and services to collaborate with faculties directly. I think that can have a really added benefit, because if we look across the MSU, a lot of our faculties are underrepresented, and that if we actually partner with them directly and make more targeted support, it's going to support those communities better. And it's also going to act as a more feet on the ground approach to marketing and campaigning the MSU. I think also in terms of the SRA, that we can look at kind of putting in place video campaigns similar to what my platform point was in terms of our peer support services. That I think when we look at things like SRA or different services, folks either don't know about it or they're kind of intimidated to go and access them. So I think by using the new role of the videographer that we actually have in the communications team of the MSU this upcoming year, we can use that as a form to kind of have different spotlights on different services and different spotlights on the SRA and caucuses on what they're doing, and use that as a form of marketing.
Figueredo?
Hello. So my question is, how will you balance completing your over 40 platform points while also supporting part-time staff through unplanned issues that require your immediate support?
Yeah, so I think that's a really great and valid question. And that I think it kind of pulls off of what some of the other things I said earlier on, in that in the role of Vice President Admin, you're not alone in it. There are other board members, and that if I'm ever finding a spot where I feel like I need extra support, it's communicating that and asking for that. I think also acknowledging where I will need that extra support and knowing that ahead of time. And so, for example, I'd already identified SRA training as something that I would likely need, just to make sure I'm doing that adequately, need a little bit of support on. And so being able to be proactive on that and being able to act on that beforehand will help hopefully mitigate it. I think also a lot of my platform stems across of acknowledging that not everything can be done in 1 year and looking at longer term strategic plans. Part of like one of them was having a 5-year strategic plan on equity and social accountability. And I think that when we look at that, it is a really daunting task, and being able to actually break that up over a longer term change, breaking that up over years so that potential successors to the role can then go pick up where I left off and continue the work.
Hackett?
Hello. So my question is, as the VP admin, you will be supervising and supporting roughly 20 part-time managers through executive board. So do you feel that the current accountability process within EB in terms of writing report is fair? And are there things that you would like to change to ensure staff are being held accountable to their yearly goals?
Yes, I think we definitely can make adjustments to our executive board structure. I think right now is that in part-time managers, I think first of all, the training that we have right from the beginning to the get-go is emphasizing that executive board is a supervisory position, and that I think sometimes that gets lost throughout the year, and that if we look at other jobs, you wouldn't not want to submit a report to your job supervisor. You wouldn't want to not submit a report to your thesis supervisor. And whereas I acknowledge there are times when you might not be able to get it in on time, but making sure that part-time managers communicate that in advance. I think also one of the things I want to do is actually adjust when the documents and reports for executive board are due. So currently they're due 2 days before the scheduled executive board meeting. I want to increase that to 1 week so that if there are documents missing, it allows us to have more time to go and reach out for them. But it also has the added benefit of that the folks within executive board have more time to actually read through those documents and have a more informed and effective meeting. I think also, though, when we look at executive board, if we're seeing that there's a consistent pattern of part-time managers not submitting reports on time, looking towards something like a written warning to have as a disciplinary action, while other forms of conflict or issues with a part-time manager I don't think warrants that level of disciplinary action, and you can pull them in for a conversation instead. I think when we're looking at accountability and reporting, we need to be more firm on that.
Singh?
Hello, everyone. So I just had a question in relation to PTM hiring and the platform point you have about improving PTM accountability. So in here, you talk about how you would work with Madison Hempel to improve the feedback from executive volunteers. I kind of want to better understand both when managing direct feedback like that, as well as feedback from people who may have used a service. What strategies would you put in place to ensure that the data collected is actually done in a fair way? Like I know the MSU, especially, I guess more recently, as people have become more and more polarized, it's suffered from issues where we, collect data, but there's a very small number of respondents, and they're very one group responds because they feel very strongly in support of a service, while the other group responds because they feel very strongly against service. So I kind of want to know what strategies you would put in place to ensure that data collection is done more fairly, so we have a better understanding what the actual student body as a whole feels versus just a few polarized individuals.
Yeah, I think we approach that kind of like two-pronged. So first, looking at the PTM accountability side, when we look at the feedback that we collect from so currently what happens is that we collect feedback from executive team members on their PTM, and that's done through a survey being shared to the PTM, and then that survey then gets sent to the executive volunteers to fill out, and the PTM never actually receives that data directly. It then goes back to human resources to go and actually collect that data, and we go and have a meeting on that feedback. But in that line of transmission, it does, if a PTM accidentally forgets to go and send that to their executive team, we lose that entire feedback. And I think that it's a really easy solution. And I talked to Madison about this as well, and being able to just go and have that feedback survey actually being sent either from the VP admin or from the human resources department directly to the executive team emails to collect that feedback, just to ensure that they're actually being able to access it. I think when you also like look at the survey, survey reviews and survey feedbacks, you bring up a really excellent point of it potentially being polarized or biased in some ways. And I think that feeds into my platform point on focus groups. In my role in the Student Success Center, we did a lot of reviews and conducted a lot of focus groups and surveys. And that being able to have a focus group and actually have guided conversations that we can like look at multiple perspectives will help be able to bring more holistic feedback to our services and hopefully get a better view as to what the needs of our communities are.
Miranda?
Yeah, thank you.
Hello. Though though policy development isn't explicitly a part of the VP admin job description, previous VPs have put a focus on this during their time in the role. So how might you utilize and leverage policy in your role, and what are your strategies surrounding policy development and creating sustainable change?
Yeah. So I think one of the first things that comes to my mind is my idea on equitable hiring and the policy that I'd like to write on that. So currently, what we're looking at of our PTM hiring, there's things set in place in terms of like who sits on a hiring board and what that looks like. I want to mimic that and have that offered for our executive team hiring so that we explicitly have defined in a policy who's going to stand on an executive board to making sure that we can eliminate bias as much as we can. I think when we're also looking at like another change that I want to make in terms of sponsorships and having that as a more organizational standpoint, we need to make sure that we have the policy framework in place to begin with, because there's so many questions that can come up in terms of who are we going to potentially like accept money from sponsorship, who's going to approve such sponsorships. And I think to help mitigate potential conflicts in the future, being able to go and point to a policy framework and having that structure in place to begin with will just help more clearly define what directions we can go to from an organizational standpoint. In terms of like my approach to policy writing, I do have some experience in it in terms of like on the Student Success Center side to it actually. And so I think definitely like pulling from that and looking at structures of past policies and reviewing that and seeing where what we agree with, where its strengths and weaknesses lie, and also making sure that we're having proper consultation in the writing of the policies to make sure that it's actually like fitting and meeting the needs of what the policy is ultimately trying to achieve.
Tassos?
Hi, Annika. In light of the cancellation of May at Mac and the general uncertainty towards Welcome Week, how do you plan on supporting incoming first years during COVID-19, especially during the summer months?
Yeah, so thank you for asking that, because it actually is a really like passionate point of mine. So I think one of the big challenges is that there is such uncertainty surrounding COVID-19 and the future of Welcome Week, and that in my consultations, currently right now they're working on 3 contingency plans. So one being Welcome Week proceed as normal, one being Welcome Week being proceeded in small groups and really emphasizing on physical distancing, and one being there's no Welcome Week and it would all be entirely online support and transition. So we're basically going to be potentially planning 3 different Welcome Weeks, and that's going to be a very large task. In terms of like more specifics of also how we can also support our students during the summer, one thing is looking at having more live streams, and I think we can go and have upper year students and like partnering with different folks on campus who already do live streams during the summer, such as like the Student Success Center, to kind of like build off of that. I think another idea I actually had was also looking at having potentially like a pen pal situation where we have reps going and writing into like students if they want to still engage as a rep, even though there may not be any like physical Welcome Week. And that I do think we're going to have to like think of some like creative ways to making sure that we can go and build a sense of community across our first year students, and also provide them the accurate information that they need going forward as they're transitioning into first year, even though we may not have those like physical supports in place.
Okay, so Jolie.
Hi, Annika. So my question for you is, one aspect of the VP admin role is to support AVPs. This includes the AVP services when constructing service reviews. So how would you handle a situation where a member of the executive board has approached you about a conflicting opinion on a recommendation made in the service review?
Could you actually rephrase that? Not rephrase. Could you repeat that question, please?
Yeah. So basically, if a member of the executive board has approached you about a conflicting opinion in regards to a recommendation made within a service review, how would you go about handling that situation?
Thank you for asking that, because I think that's a very legitimate concern that can come up. So I think first is approaching it how I'd approach a lot of any conflict really, and making sure that I am approaching it as an open conversation, and being able to discuss why that recommendation was put in place, and share why that was an outcome, and looking back on the evidence-based review and pulling from that to explain the reasoning behind it, but also being fair and being an active listener and hearing what the concern of that executive board member is, and making sure that I'm valuing that and thinking about that and taking that into consideration. I think that though, when we look at our service reviews, is that the service reviews are supposed to be done in an impartial light, and there are structures in place in terms of the feedback that we get, the surveys that we have, and that when we're having service reviews, they are evidence-based. They're not coming from places of this is just an idea that came up. They're coming from an actual thought out discussion, and that I think we can continue to kind of build off of the structure of the service reviews that we already have in place in terms of the survey. So, and actually incorporating targeted focus groups, and going and making sure that we're making sure views are not biased. But I think it's difficult to provide an exact answer without having more context around it, but looking at it from a conflict resolution standpoint.
Okay. And that right now marks the end of our question period. So I would like to thank Annika for questioning a period, and Graham too if he's listening. So we're now going to be going off and doing our closing statements. So the closing statements will be 5 minutes each. And Annika, you'll be up first because we go by reverse alphabetical order. And what's my last thing, which I'm trying to say? And would you have any preference with the timers you'd like with the time you'd like, or do you have any supporting documents which you'd like to show? If you don't, that's also totally cool too.
I don't have any documents. A 1 minute mark should be fine, but I'm gonna keep it short and sweet, so it should be okay.
Okay.
No worries, thank you.
Whenever you're ready.
So, first of all, I want to thank you all for taking the time out of your weekends and finals to come to listen to all of us speak. I think I can speak on behalf of all candidates in saying we really appreciate you listening to us share all of our ideas. I also want to thank everyone who provided me with feedback on my ideas. I really value all the feedback, both positive and critical, and I hope to continue working with you all in the coming year and continuing to hear your insight. Even though the election may be ending today, the platform will only be beginning to come to life. I hope to continue getting your input and hearing your thoughts on the development of this role and how to better support our students. I also hope over the course of this election, you have seen the skills and experience I have and how they would translate well into the role of Vice President Admin. Experiences such as my time as a volunteer and part-time manager of Spark, a volunteer on the Peer Support Service Check, and my work within the Student Success Center. All of these experiences have helped me develop conflict resolution skills, how to provide effective training, event planning skills, and also how to approach situations with nuance and compassion, which I think are all skills that are valuable to the role of Vice President Admin. I want to work together as the SRA and the MSU to make McMaster a safe and comfortable and inclusive space for all. I plan to set structures in place for improved training, transition, and support of our part-time managers, associate vice presidents, SRA members, service volunteers, and students. This would include introducing policy and sponsorships, beginning hiring cycles earlier, and reevaluating the training that we provide. I plan to better engage with the McMaster community through online supports, transparent meeting minutes, and updated marketing strategies. To promote inclusivity and equity, I plan to draft a 5-year strategic plan on social accountability and equity, ensure all our online documents are screen reader friendly, and focus on creating equitable hiring processes. Finally, I hope to continue my dedicated work towards supporting first-year students through the Vice President Admin's role in welcoming planning. Overall, I hope you all see I have genuine passion and excitement for the role of the Vice President Admin, and I would be deeply honored to take on this position. Through the role, I look forward to empowering others and SRA members and the McMaster community to continue to grow and to pursue their goals. I want to help part-time managers pursue and look towards anything that they want to try out new. And I'm excited to see the leadership as I'm excited to see the leadership at McMaster continue to grow, and I hope I can continue to be a part of it in the future. Regardless of who is ultimately elected for the role, I hope the great ideas that have come forward this weekend are pursued next year. It's been so exciting to see everyone shine and hear everyone else's thoughts. I want to thank everyone who helped in my consultation process, and again, thank all of you, the SRA. You've all just started your roles with different ideas and experiences, and I hope we can each help each other grow in the coming year. Thank you very much. Stay safe, stay connected with one another, and take care.
Okay. Graham, do you have any warnings which you'd like to have?
If I could please have a 3-minute warning, that would be perfectly fine.
Perfect. Okay, whenever you're ready.
Awesome. Hi, everyone. I know Annika's already gone through some of the thanks, but I would like to reciprocate those and say thank you so much to everyone who took the time to consult or have discussions with me about some of the issues that they faced and things that they're proud about from their experience with working with the MSU. There's definitely a lot of opportunities out there for making sure that change and really impactful change is made within this organization to improve the lives of students across campus, regardless of whether they engage with the MSU currently or whether they see it as an opportunity to really get involved in their student experience and leading themselves in personal development as well as the development of their peers. So you've already seen a lot of the key ideas that I presented in regards to connecting members of the student union in a way that's not necessarily typical of someone who's interested in becoming a VP admin. I think there are a lot of opportunities within this organization to really bind and ensure that people are empowered to pursue their passions in a way that's clear and as well free from irregular or perhaps unclear expectations. I think one of the biggest factors that contributes to whether people feel fulfilled going into this role or coming out of it has to do with people's evaluations of what they think is a reasonable change to make, and then reaching for the limits of those every year to ensure that we're really pursuing the highest quality of education as well as support for students across campus. As well as the microcosm that this is, expanding that into the world that we will pursue after we graduate. So whether it's through a large-scale educational regime or introducing opportunities for part-time manager support through various forms of reviews, as well as introductions of dedicated staff members, or introducing completely new structures and changes to very minute documents that aren't necessarily considered as important. I hope that over the next year we can develop as a team to ensure that we're connecting the dots of the MSU and really just supporting each other in educating as well as developing our own perspectives and reaching grand heights together. So whether it's working with the board of directors incoming or with some of the staff in the office who I've already gotten very familiar with, making sure that we're all working towards the same goal and creating a unified student union where everyone feels welcome and engaged. Thank you.
Thank you both. So now this part of the election is done when it comes to you, and now it comes to the voting part of the election. So as stated before, and we'll be doing it again, when we do start voting, I'll first be doing an unofficial call to see who is eligible to vote for what emails we should be expecting. And then I will give, after the call, I will give further instructions. So wait to hear your name and either say verbally, or you can also message in the chat if you are present. Let me just pull up the attendance. Okay. Perfect. Amenier?
Here.
Ao Young?
Here.
Bactassos?
Here.
Big?
Here.
Birch?
Here.
Chopra?
Here.
Dewey?
Here.
Dahab? Dahab? Sabrina? Sabrina Dahab? Going once. Sabrina Dahab? Going twice.
Sorry, I'm here.
Jacob De Silva? Jacob?
I'm here.
Listo?
Here.
Della Vedova?
Here.
Desindal?
Here.
Dixit?
Yep.
Egbayemi?
Here.
Figueredo?
Here.
Godlewski? God.
Levski. Here.
Hackett?
Here.
Johnson?
Here.
Jones.
Here.
I heard you, Alex. Jones?
Sorry.
Here.
No, it's all good. Kosak?
Yeah, I'm here.
Lavinda? Damieli? Damieli? Okay, perfect. Mirando?
Here.
Messick? Amelia?
Present.
Nahua?
Here.
Patel?
Here.
Sampson?
Here.
Charlasani?
Here.
Seymour?
Here.
Singh?
Did you say sing?
Yes.
Well, I'm present.
Mid?
Here.
Okos?
Here.
Sin?
Here.
Sai?
Here.
Violin? Charlie? Charlie violin? Charlie going once? Charlie violin going twice? Charlie going 3 times? Okay. And Wang.
Here.
Okay. Perfect. So we now have a list of people who are here. So let me now re-explain through how the voting of the ballot will work. Especially since we had 3 spoiled ballots, I'd love to see that we have 0 spoiled ballots this time and everyone's vote is eligible. So as you, I will post another picture of the ballot, how it will look. So a couple of things. Number 1, ensure that when you're writing your full name and initials, you're writing your full name and your own initials. So that's to just make sure that it's yours. Another 2, this is a request, please reply all, so both me and Daniela get the email because we need to email it to 2 people. Some people last time emailed just me and I had to go and forward the email to Daniela, which is what took a lot of time for delaying too. And make sure that when you're voting for people, you write the person's name. If you write a name that is not recognizable as the person's name, your vote will be spoiled. Another thing too is when you send your ballot, that's it. You only get 1 ballot because think of you sending your ballot as in putting your ballot into a big basket. You can't then go and pull out your ballot, find your ballot, pull out your ballot, rechange your vote, and then put your ballot in. Once it's sent, it's done. So what will happen is that if you send more than 1 ballot, we will take the first ballot. And if that ballot is spoiled, then you've spoiled your vote. And so the big things, remember your full names, remember to write your initials, remember to write the candidate's name, either first name or full name. We prefer full name. And remember, you only get 1 ballot. Once you send it, that is your ballot. And then also remember to reply. Also, both me and Daniela get the email. I believe that everyone should now be able to get the email. If you do not, please message the chat. I have now sent the ballot. If you have not gotten the ballot within, let's say, 2 minutes, please let me know because it is imperative. Because I believe that we should have gotten, what am I trying to say? Everyone on the ballot. There is 1 person who might get it and might not, and then we'll go by that by case by case. People should have now started to get their ballots. Yes, we have a point of information.
I'm just wondering, in the ballot, should we just leave the third spot blank or delete
Yes, leave the
it?
third spot empty. That was an oversight on me. I made the speaker ballot first, and then I kept that template, and then I accidentally forgot to change just the VP admin. Everyone else is done accurately. You don't need to email me. It's just interesting because have you checked your McMaster email? Because you should be on the list of what am I trying to say? You should be on the SRA 2021 list. It should be emailed to your Mac email.
Yeah, I'm on it right now and I still don't have it. I've been having trouble getting the emails from the SRA list though.
Have you checked your junk or spam email?
I'll check. No, not there.
Okay, I will send that to you. That's really interesting.
Yeah, I've been having a lot of problems getting the emails, unfortunately.
Oh, not a problem. I just wanted to test. Oh, sorry. There's another question about ranked ballots. Make sure we are still for VP elections. We always do ranked ballots, so you can still rank the two candidates. Okay. I believe if you have not voted yet and you've said that you are here in attendance, please let me know. I believe we're either waiting for one or no votes. So if you have not voted yet, please let me know right now. You got like a minute. Last call for votes. Last call for votes. Going once. Twice. 3 times. Okay, I'm going to assume that we've now had all of our votes. So at this time, it's going to be the same as speaker election. I will be leaving the meeting to go and tally votes, me and Daniela, and then we will return when we are done with counting the votes. Please ensure that you're still on the call. Feel free to get up, but make sure you're on the call because we could come back at any time. So we'll see y'all in a bit. We were talking about the weather. I came just at the right time. I saved all of you. Okay. This is it. Okay, I'm back on. I'm just going to assume people can hear me. Can people hear me? Woo-hoo.
Yes, we can hear you.
Perfect. Okay, so I'm just going to ask that the recording started. Oh, this is great. So, are both of the candidates here present in the room?
Yep.
Yep. Perfect. So, I would like to thank both of you for running, and it was a tight race. And for, sorry, I have the vote wrong on my laptop. Give me a second. Perfect. And by a vote of 17 to 14 with one abstention, I'd like to congratulate Annika Spazov for being the incoming Vice President Administration. Both of you had a wonderful race. And to the Assembly, we did currently have 2 spoiled ballots. So this, I think, should just so this just shows that it's very important to follow the instructions and make sure that your ballot is not spoiled, because with tight races it can make a significant change. And yes, that is it for this. So I'd like to thank both of the candidates for running, for putting yourself out there. Running an election is very stressful, and you both did wonderfully. So thank you and congratulations. Woo! This is usually when everyone's clapping, so I'm just gonna clap for everyone. Woo! That's great. And also, I'd like to just put some notes too as we wait for the congratulations. 3 people did not CC Daniela, so please do that. So make sure that when we vote in the next times, we CC Daniela. 1 person CC'd the Vice President Administration. You want to make sure you're not CCing Sarah. You want to be CCing Daniela. So that's assistant at msu.mcmaster.ca. If you reply all, you will be able to just go and CC the people who are there. And that is now the conclusion of our VP administration elections. So now, give me a second. This is on my end. Getting some difficulties on my end. Give me some time. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Okay. And this is so annoying. Thank you. Thank you for your patience. My computer was glitching. So now we're going to be, unless anyone has any objections, we're going to be moving on to the next stage of our elections period, which is the VP administration. And I'll just let the congratulations continue finishing. So we are now going to be going on to the individualized questions for the VP administration. Fazia, are you here with us?
Yes, I'm here.
Perfect. Okay, so I'm just give me a moment to set up, and you can get mentally prepared or do whatever your ritual is to prepare for questions on your end. So as said before, the individualized questions will be 20 minutes, and this will be added to the speakers list. Please wait until I say that the speakers list is open for you to add yourself, just because I just need to do a couple of things on my end to get ready for the individualized speaking section. Okay. So Fazia, you'll be having a minute and a half. Is a 10-second timer just fine, or would you like any more timers?
No, 10-second timer is good.
Perfect. Okay, everything ready on your end?
Yes.
Okay, I would like to open up the floor for questions. Hackett?
Hello. Okay, so my question is, the implementation of ECHO 360 has been a VP Ed priority for the last few years. So what specifically makes your approach different than what has been done in the past in order to ensure that all classes are actually using ECHO 360 on campus?
So I think my approach with ECHO 360 and with the adoption of ECHO 360, it's going to be important to factor in the fact that faculties interact with various online mechanisms differently. Someone who is in the social sciences and someone in political science, I find that Echo 360 is actually something that's not used. So I find that it's going to be really important to work with various faculty societies, and this is a consistent pillar of my platform across the various platform priorities, but ensuring that we're working with different faculty offices to understand that the different ways that online mechanisms interact with different faculties. I think in the sciences, what Echo 360 use looks like is different than in the social sciences, and also different in faculties like arts and science as well. So I think just ensuring that it's tailored, because I think when advocacy points are not tailored, then that could have impact in terms of like your advocacy partner actually taking on that change and affecting that change. So I think ensuring that it's tailored and ensuring that we're like very much understanding how online mechanisms interact with various faculties. That's my approach. I think that will kind of help us incentivize various faculties to adopt it a little bit better.
Okay. Singh?
Hello, Fazia. Hope you're doing well.
Hope you're doing well as well.
Yes, yeah. Done exams, so that's definitely a positive. I just had a question about your divestment plan. So I know this was presented to the previous SRA as well, and it has been an idea that has been, I guess, moving around recently. So how do you hope to actually advocate successfully? Because I understand that in this role, it's very difficult often to get the university to actually complete an advocacy goal we have because of their own biases and their own I guess reasons for opposing our perspective. So how do you hope to actually accomplish it, and what strategies do you think you'll employ to ensure that the divestment plan can actually be implemented and the university doesn't just deny it?
So I think in terms of divestment advocacy at the MSU level, it's important to factor in that it has changed a little bit, in my opinion, especially amid COVID. I think that first, advocating for divestment to the university first, it's going to be important that the MSU also is a pillar of that and divests as well, because it's difficult to advocate if organizationally we're also not representing that. So I think that first starting with divestment on the MSU level, but I also think it's important to factor in amid COVID, we may be moving into an economic recession, and that may be something that impacts that divestment ask from the university. So I think ensuring that first we understand that, amid COVID, it's possible that our stakeholders may use fossil fuel investments kind of to supplement some of the revenue that they may be losing. But I think what's going to be important is for the university to understand that COVID is temporary, climate change is long-term, and I think given the kind of route that our society has taken on climate change, it doesn't seem to be ending anytime soon. So while in the short term, maybe incrementally divesting off of fossil fuel investments at the university level and asking for that ask may be more realistic for the year, but ensuring that climate change accountability is kind of a pillar in our advocacy, and ensuring that they know that even though the ask this year may be incrementally reducing their divestment, their investments in fossil fuels, COVID will not last forever, and climate change is very important to be accountable for, especially as an institution as big as a university. So I think just ensuring that we're both understanding the social climate and the economic climate, but also at the same time being firm in our stances and standing up for students, even if that's difficult.
Yeah, I think that's very fair. Yeah, thank you.
Fantastos?
Hi, Fazia. In light of COVID-19 and the transition on to primarily online education, how do you plan on supporting students who don't have access to good internet or other technological difficulties?
For sure. I think that in the construction, especially of summer and fall courses, the university is going to have to really understand that not all students have the same access to internet, and that is going to impact the ability for students to get the grades that they're looking for or have the academic kind of experience that they're hoping for. I think first, understanding the student experience, understanding kind of the climate, if students overall and overarchingly, this is an overarching issue, I think that will really, really be an important way for the university to factor that into their construction of courses in the fall. So I think first collecting that data, I believe that advocacy starts with firmly understanding the group that you're advocating for. And I think that if we have firm data that shows that students are having difficulty interacting with school remotely, then we can bring that to the university with thousands of students. I think that advocacy is strong student advocacy because there's so many students, and the whole point of a university is to be student-centric, in my opinion. So that's kind of how I plan to do it, by first really, really understanding, so we have a firm ask that we can bring to the university.
Okay, Hackett.
Sorry, my computer would not unmute. There we go. So my question is, your platform speaks to the high rates of municipal, under the municipal section, your platform speaks to the high rates of police-reported hate crimes in the city, and how you plan to increase student voices when it comes to the Hamilton Anti-Racism Resource Center. So recently, City Council hired a consultant to hire an independent board of directors for the center by the end of June. So moving forward, what role do you plan to play in the future of the service, and what ways do you believe the service can better serve students and the Hamilton community? Main question you'd like.
Sorry, the tail end of the question I lost, but I think I got the gist of it. Yeah, so I think something that's going to be very, very important in terms of interacting with the independent board that the City of Hamilton appoints is addressing the changes that the City of Hamilton has made to the center. So currently, so previously when it was headed by the Hamilton Center for Civic Inclusion and McMaster University, it was meant to be a center, a full center that allowed people to kind of have a social place to interact, but also at the same time to have robust reporting tools. Currently, the City of Hamilton has changed that to an online reporting mechanism and a phone reporting tool. So there's no longer a center, which I think takes away from the kind of spirit of the center to begin with, and the spirit of the ask of having an anti-racism resource center. So I think first working with the independent board to ensure that in that transition from moving it from HCCI and the city and McMaster University to the city to now this independent board, things haven't gotten lost in translation, and that the original goal is still there. I think also working with the independent board to understand that there are thousands of students that live in the city. There are thousands of marginalized students that live in the city, racialized students as well. Students have a very, very important stake in an anti-racism resource center in the city. So making sure that it's something that can actually affect change, making sure that it's an actual center and not just an online and phone reporting tool, because we have that through EIO. So, or we have similar things through EIO. So I think actually having a center and actually having a place where students can go will be important. So that's kind of how I hope to mitigate that.
Figueredo.
Hello. Where do you think you'll need the most support in your first 4 months in the role?
Yeah, I think, and this is something that I think is like a pillar of my platform, but advocacy relies on partnerships, and advocacy relies on robust partnerships. I think in the first 4 months of my role, I'll need the most support in ensuring that we're keeping consistent communication with various MPs, MPPs, student unions. You know, there's a lot of stakeholders, and I think that keeping that support and keeping that consistent to ensure that we can actually accomplish our asks, hitting the ground running at the end of the summer. So I think that's going to be where I need the most support, just ensuring that I have the ability to consistently interact with these various partners so that we have a strong advocacy foundation.
Okay. Hackett.
Awesome. So how does your vision for advocacy over the next year align with the president-elect? And what are the overlapping advocacy points, and how do you envision collaborating to achieve your combined advocacy goals for the year?
For sure. Would you mind repeating the first part of the question?
Absolutely. So how does your vision for advocacy over the next year align with the president-elect?
So especially in terms of sustainability, we have a lot of overlapping advocacy priorities. I think that we both look towards a lot of sustainability initiatives at the university level. So ensuring that we're increasing compost bin usage, ensuring that we're moving the needle on banning water bottles, making sure that we're working with the university to create sustainability plans across various faculties. Also, we've discussed kind of the role of presidential support through provincial and federal advocacy as well. We're both in line with ensuring that sustainability and mental health priorities are in the provincial and federal advocacy priorities as well. So those are two ways that we hope to align, both mental health and sustainability, and also as well ensuring we've had conversations around more robust advocacy provincially and federally. So those are kind of ways that we see overlap. I think that Giancarlo has a lot of advocacy priorities as well. So I see good synergy between the two positions.
Giancarlo?
Hi, Fazia. Relating to your MSU advocacy point with services, how do you plan to navigate situations where part-time managers do not see eye to eye with you on advocacy initiatives or strategies?
Sure. I think so. With the section on MSU services and MSU advocacy, I think the main priority is to ensure that even though advocacy points, may not align, I think it's going to be important to ensure that their voice is heard and that they have the ability to share their ideas, their experiences, how they plan to run events in their services. I think just having that ability for communication between the VP Ed and the AVPs and the education team, as well as PTMs from the services, I think that that's going to be a really important ask. I think that things may not always align, and it's just going to be important to have those conversations. Conflicts can be inherent sometimes when interacting with others, but I think that conflict can be healthy because that means that you're having conversations, you're having opportunities for people to kind of share their ideas and get involved. So yeah, having open conversations, being open to critique as well in this position is going to be really important as well. So those are some ways that I hope to mitigate that.
Hackett?
Hello, yet again. So my question is, as a member of the board of directors, you will also be sitting on executive board and you will have to make decisions about services that the MSU oversees. So can you speak to your understanding or involvement within MSU services?
Yeah, when I sat on the SRA in my third year, I sat on the services committee for the second semester. So I actually worked with Sarah Figueredo when she was the AVP services to conduct a few services reviews. So that's kind of been my service experience. I don't have too much service experience in terms of volunteering with various services, but just as a member of the SRA and working directly with the VP admin of that year, Christina Epifano, and also sitting on the services committee, I've gained some understanding of various services, how various services interact, when conversations of rescission are happening, what's being factored in. I think that year we also came to the conclusion to rescind the service. So I kind of understand what that process is like and what ideas go into that process as well. So yeah, some of that experience has I think given me a step to be able to participate on executive board effectively.
Okay. Do we have any further questions for Fazia? Hackett.
Yes, I did have a question. So much of the advocacy work done by the education team is done outside of the purview of students. So what will you do to ensure students remain connected and updated on the MSU's overall advocacy?
So a point in my platform is to increase the readability of our MSU documents. Currently, MSU policies, they can be lengthy documents. Advocacy can feel a little bit inaccessible for some people, especially because it seems kind of like niche knowledge. So I think increasing the ability for students to understand our advocacy priorities. So if that means also increasing advocacy, not training, but advocacy understanding, advocacy education. I also think increasing opportunities for students to share their voice. I mentioned this yesterday, but I also think that sometimes we need mechanisms for students to kind of share their voices and leave because not all students need to be part of advocacy, but advocacy needs to be part of every student. So I think ensuring that students have opportunities to share their voice without additional commitment will be important as well. Also, something that I really hope to do is to create briefs for especially lengthy MSU policies, but hopefully all MSU policies. This is something that USA also does, and that's something I found that really helps. They create policy briefs, so you don't have to read through 50 pages of text. You can kind of get the gist from a 2-page document. And I think that's something that will really help the accessibility of advocacy.
Okay. Staphokos?
One of your platform points is regarding decolonizing a lot of the syllabus in our education. And I was just wondering kind of what that actually looks like for you and how you plan on going around doing so.
Yeah. So to me, what decolonization looks like, and also this is something that I was able to learn in my 4th year of political science, taking various courses. But to me, it means recentering various forms of knowledge. So especially in the social sciences and the arts, in the construction of a syllabus, a lot of the times we're dealing with various theories from week to week. So ensuring that professors are aligning their syllabus with various theories, are understanding that, colonialism is a real product of our society, factoring that into the construction of their courses, bringing in knowledge and different understandings from various places in the world, and I think encapsulating that history. On the sciences, engineering, health sciences, nursing side, sorry if I missed a few faculties, but basically on the non-arts, non-social sciences side, I think it's going to be really important to factor in course creation and also the texts that we're using and making sure that language isn't outdated, giving students the opportunities to participate in courses that teaches them about like colonialism, the various ways colonialism interacts with our education system and what that means for education, what that means for education that we actually might be losing out on. That's something I really found in my international relations course I took second semester, was that we are actually missing out on a lot of education if we're not recentering knowledge and factoring knowledge from other parts of the world. So that's something I hope to work on, also especially with SRA members, because I said yesterday, but I think SRA members understand their faculties best, and I think they can have a really great way to participate and tailor that to their faculties.
Okay. Do we have any further questions for Fazia? Any further questions? Further questions going once. Further questions going twice.
Point of information, Marianne, how much time is left?
There is just over 4 minutes left. Further questions going once. Further questions going 2 times. Further questions going 3 times. All right. I'd like to thank Fazia for finishing her individualized question period. Woo! And now, so we're going to go off to the closing statements. It's going to be reversed out of alphabetical order. So Fazia, you're up first.
Awesome.
And then, is there any warnings you'd like me to give you?
Could you give me a 10-second warning?
Okay, perfect.
So thank you to the SRA and the board for your time during this election process, and also during this unprecedented time during COVID. With over 3 years of experience working in volunteering and advocacy and student governance, I've developed a clear vision of the current gaps in student advocacy, as well as how to work towards filling them. I'm ready for the task of advocating for student needs. It's in my veins to stand up for others, and it's essential that the MSU as an organization that represents students and does it effectively. I'm confident that strong advocacy is an essential part to ensuring students not only have an enjoyable undergrad, but an undergrad where they are supported emotionally, mentally, physically, and financially, supporting students in their mental health, in their physical health, and in the academic policies and government decisions that become their real-life interactions every academic year. At the university level, I plan to advocate for student-centric exam policies, affordable courseware through open educational resource use, as well as strong and consistent online infrastructure through advocating for increased Echo 360 use. Additionally, I plan to advocate for groups on campus by increasing supports to international students through working with the Student Success Center to address gaps in the international student experience, as well as by working with the Equity and Inclusion Office to increase training for survivor-centric SBPR strategies for residence life and student-facing staff. At the municipal level, I plan to prioritize advocacy that improves student living. This includes the creation of campaigns that educate students on their renter rights and important Hamilton bylaws, as well as advocating for bike lanes that ensure physical safety so that students can opt for a SOBI bike instead of taking the bus every day. This also includes advocating for safer cities for racialized and marginalized students to live and grow in, as well as neighborhoods that are physically accessible through advocating for citywide snow removal so that we're not risking injury on an ice-covered sidewalk to get to an 8:30 a.m. class. At the provincial and federal level, I plan to strengthen our advocacy by increasing our direct relationships with MPs, MPPs, and student unions to increase our opportunities for collaboration and to ensure direct representation of McMaster student needs. Additionally, I plan to stand firm in advocating for the post-secondary affordability of students, both during COVID-19, but also far beyond. As a board member, I will prioritize synergy in the organization by working with the board to ensure that the MSU internally reflects the MSU policies and advocacy priorities to which it externally advocates. As VP Ed and as a manager of the education team, I will support the AVPs, research assistants, and the advocacy coordinator by ensuring that they are equipped with sound vision for the year, robust training, and consistent support throughout their terms. And finally, as a past member of the Assembly, I'm committed to working with the VP Admin to ensure that your SRA experience is beneficial and that the Assembly is equipped with advocacy training that allows you to feel confident and strong in your faculty advocacy. So thank you so much for listening. Thank you for your time, and I'm very, very excited about the future of student advocacy.
Thank you, Fazia. So we are then going to run the attendance again. And if you are present, I hope you know the drill. just make sure that you say your name or write on the chat that you're present, just so that we can know what votes we're expecting to see during the voting period. Give me a moment, just pulling up the file. Okay. Simranjeet, I hadn't called your name yet, but thank you for letting me know you're present. Or is it Selby? I'm not sure. Daniel Aminier? Daniel?
Present.
Al Young?
Here.
Astos?
Present.
Big? Big. Sod? Sod going once. Sod going twice. Oh, there, I see it. Perfect. Give me a moment. I had to get off of my files. Birch, Haley Birch.
Here.
Manpreet Chopra.
Here.
Arafina Chui. Sabrina Dahab.
Hello, I'm here.
Jacob De Silva. Gail Marie Del Castillo. Denver Delavadova. Denver.
Here.
Simran Jacinda. Adit Dixit.
Yeah.
Adiola Egbayemi. Adiola. Okay. Sarah Figueredo.
Here.
Damien Goldlewski. Shamar Hackett. Johnson.
Here.
Jones.
Yep.
Kosak. Damieli. Mirando. Messick. Amelia Messick. Messick, going once. Messick. Okay, Amelia. Nakua.
Here.
Patel.
Here.
Samson.
Here.
Charlotte Slaney. Shelby Seymour.
Here.
Simranjeet I saw was here. Okay, Amelia's here. Perfect. Smid. Meet. Adrian Stephakonos.
Here.
Charlie Violin. Okay. And Jacob Wang. Okay, perfect. So I'm going to explain to you kind of how this vote will work. Because we have one candidate, this vote will be different, and it is imperative. We had 3 spoiled ballots in the first election. We had 2 spoiled ballots this time. I want to make it that we have 0 spoiled ballots. So because there is one person running, this is not a ranked vote. This is either you vote confidence or no confidence. You have one option and one option only. If you rank confidence then no confidence, your ballot will be spoiled. It says that you have one option, you write one option down. Another thing too, do not forget to write your name and initials on the ballot. If you right before you're about to send it, you better triple check and quadruple check that your name and initials are there. That is how our ballots were spoiled. You want to make sure that you're writing your name and initials. In addition, make sure you're writing either confidence or no confidence for one person. Confidence or no confidence are the only things I should see, and I should only see one of them in the ballot, or your ballot will be spoiled. In addition, when you reply, please reply all so both me and Daniela are able to get the emails. That is one thing that causes the delay, is that both of us do not get the emails and we have to go and forward the emails to each other. Make sure that you are replying all to me and Daniela, okay? And make sure you're writing either confidence or no confidence, and quadruple and quintuple check that you have written your name and initials. If you're about to send and you think you've written your name, make sure to check it again because you might haven't. At this point, everyone should be able to get the mail. But if you have not gotten the ballot, please let me know. I haven't sent it yet. So please write either confidence or no confidence. You shouldn't need to know the spelling of Fazia's name because we are not writing her name down. We are either writing confidence or no confidence. And Zoe, you were called. I'll mark that up on our agenda. This is how the ballot will look like. Make sure to write either confidence or no confidence and your name and initials. Like quintuple check. I want to see zero spoiled ballots, and either confidence or no. Only one option. Do not pick both. You pick both, your ballot is spoiled. I don't want to see any spoiled ballots. I want to make sure that all of your ballots are there. And please reply also. Both me and Daniela are able to get the ballots. Those are the important things. You should have gotten an email, because have you checked your junk mail? Because the email should have been, if you got the previous two emails, you should have gotten the email. That's so.
I'll double check. But oh yeah, it's in the junk. That was really weird.
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah,
perfect.
no, I was okay. Cool. Sometimes when it's organizational emails, you'll send it and then after it'll be sent and then it'll sometimes go to junk, especially when I send a lot of emails. So just make sure you're checking your junk. Thanks for that. Perfect.
Definitely. Thank you so much.
Okay. If you have not sent your vote and you're pretty sure that you want to vote, please let me know. Oh, I just got a vote. I believe we have all the votes. That's wonderful. Okay. So I'm now going to then go and leave the meeting again and count the ballots. So we'll see you soon. Hello, everyone. I see all of you were very engaged in the chat, which is wonderful. And so, Fazia, are you here?
Yes, I'm here.
Perfect. So I'd like to thank you for running. And I'd like to say happily with a vote of 31 confidences to 2 no confidences, you are now the new Vice President Education-elect. So congratulations for your work. Woo!
Thank
I'm not the only one
you.
clapping. That's so makes me so happy. I hear clapping. Y'all are the real ones. So I'd like to state again that we had 2 spoiled ballots. I'm so sad because I really had hope. I really had faith. And so I'm actually really crushed right now. So please, we have one more election. We can do this. We can make it so that every single vote is eligible, because like y'all just need, and another reminder too, just a couple of things, is that when you send your ballot, we can only take take your first one. And Al Young, for the spoiled ballots, we don't email them back. What will happen though is that after this meeting, I will be compiling an email. If people would want to know if their ballots, I'll be letting the people who know their ballots are spoiled that their ballots were spoiled, and in the addition how they spoiled their ballot. And because your spoiled ballots, because these are open ballots, your spoiled ballots will be available. So when people look at the voting, they will see that your ballot was spoiled. So I guess now I'm resorting to fear mongering to make sure that the ballots are not spoiled for the final election. So that concludes the VP education election. So now that means we have one more election left.
Hello?
Hello?
Oh, sorry. Sorry, point of information or whatever.
Yes.
Can I motion for a break?
Yep. Can you be more specific in your motion, please?
Can I motion for a 15-minute break?
Okay, may I please have a seconder? Seconded by Big. Hackett, would you like to speak to it?
Oops, sorry. Yep, we just need a break. It's been a day. It's been a few hours.
Okay. Big, would you like to speak to it?
Just agreeing with Hackett.
Okay, is there any further discussion? Okay, you said 15 minutes, right? I'm just going to assume it's 15 minutes. You'll let me know if I didn't. So the motion is moved by Hackett, seconded by Bake, that the assembly recess for 15 minutes. You know what? Let's now vote by general consensus. So if you are not in favor, please write something. If you're in favor, do not write anything. So if you are not in favor, write something now. Last call for people who are not in favor or who want to abstain. Okay, so now we're going to have to vote. So now is the time for everyone to vote. So even now, if you're in favor, you're going to vote because we did not have general consensus. Perfect. Okay. So the motion passes. So I will see all of you at 12:50 sharp. 12:50. 12:50. I'll see you at 12:50. See you in a bit.
Well, they have championship pedigree. They have 3 All-Stars on floor.
Someone has their volume on.
Hello, everyone. We are just about to start and call this meeting to order because it is 12:50. So we're going to start with the call of the roll. Give me one moment. Perfect. Amine? Amine? Okay. Ao Yang? Ao Yang? Ao Yang? Bagtassos?
Here.
Big? Big? Can you please say that verbally, please? This is an official attendance. Haley? Birch?
Here.
Chopra?
Here.
Chui? Chui?
Here.
Dahab?
Hello.
Silva?
Here.
Del Castillo?
Here.
Della Vedova?
Here.
Decinda?
Here. And as Tinsa.
Densa? I'll try to remember. Dixit?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yemi?
Here.
Figueredo?
Here.
Godlewski?
Here.
Hackett? Hackett?
Sorry, my computer is slow. Here.
Not a problem. Johnson?
Here.
Jones?
Here.
Back?
Here.
Betta Lavinda?
Mabitalinova. Here.
Mirando?
Here and ready to go.
Messick?
Sorry, I'm here.
Nakua?
Here.
Patel? Patel?
Here.
Sampson?
Here.
Sarlasani?
Here.
Seymour?
Here.
Singh?
Do you say sing? Hello?
Yep, I got you.
Sorry, I know. I
Smid?
think I do this every time, but I'm sorry.
It's fine. It's a running gag now. Mid?
Here.
Here.
Finn?
Here.
Kai?
Here.
Violin?
Yes, I'm here.
Wang? Wang, would you be able to say that verbally?
Yep, here.
Thank you. Okay. So now we are on to the fourth and final section of the VP elections. So now we're on to our VP Finance. So we have two candidates, as said before, Taylor Mertens and Jess Anderson. Jess, Taylor, are both of you here?
Present.
Present.
Perfect. So Jess, you will be going first in this period. And give me a second to set myself up. And Taylor, just same thing, you know, be respectful. That's that spiel. So Jess, are there any other warnings other than the 10-second countdown, which has been typically used, that you'd like from me?
No, that's perfect. Thank you.
Perfect. Are you personally good to go?
Yes, I should be good to go.
Okay, I'm just going to set things up on my side and just make sure that everything's ready on my end. Perfect. Okay. I would like to open up the floor for questions for Jessica. Johnson?
Hi, Jess. You have in your platform that you plan to review the spending of the Welcome Week levy. That's actually something that the last 3 VP Finances have tried to do, but we've all failed. So what do you plan to do differently?
The last part of the question cut out for me.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
Sorry, just wondering what you plan to do differently and how you plan to get this done.
Great question. I think with the idea with reviewing the Welcome Week levy, as we know through my conversations that I've had with yourself as well as the VP admin this past year, I think that it's obviously something that's very important to us to make sure that we are ensuring financial transparency, both within the MSU, but also holding the university accountable as well. So through my discussions and consultations, it's strictly mostly the Student Success Center as well as Residence Life that currently aren't sharing their full budget breakdown. And in order to tackle this in the coming year, I'm really hoping to utilize the support of the whole board because through my consultations, it has been mostly just the VP Finance and VP Admin that have been spearheading this in the past. And I think through having the support of the entire board of directors, it'll definitely have a bit more weight to it and a bit more impact going forward. So with this being said, I'm just hoping that we can utilize like the VP Education's advocacy skills to ensure that we are outlining to the university just how important it is to make sure that all stakeholders within Welcome Week planning do have the comprehensive outline of budgeting. But in addition to this, I also just think it's going to be important to, in this uncertain time with financial states, I think it's going to be even more vital that we advocate on behalf of the students to make sure that they are spending their allocations of funding appropriately, specifically when looking at Welcome Week being 5 days long and costing over $750,000. It's definitely a lot of student money, and we need to make sure that it is being allocated appropriately. So I just tried to make sure this is one of my main platform points for the summer, and we'll have a huge amount of time being at home. So keep advocating towards that.
Okay, Dixit?
Yeah. How would you plan to expand and improve upon an MSU digital-wide strategy that the current VP Finance has been working on?
Great question. I do outline quite a few ideas just in regards to increasing our communication and outreach and engagement as a general whole in the coming year. And I do think that this is one of the main priorities, just to increase our overall engagement with the student body, because we do seem to be facing quite a few barriers as to how people want to engage with us. And I think that this is going to be important to kind of like take the communications department feedback into consideration and look to aligning ourselves with how students want to be engaged. So through my consultations with the Director of Marketing Communications, Michael Wooder, as well as yourself, Adit, and as well as Khalil and Connor McLean, they've all kind of pointed towards this direction of implementing more video promotions, simply because this has a larger lasting effect, I think, on student engagement, opposed to our current method of doing a lot more of those text-filled graphics that students kind of see blending into their timelines. So I'm hoping that through making sure that I have a lot of input from the comms department, we can create an even more comprehensive strategy in the coming summer and then implement it in the coming year, since everything will be much more virtually focused, I'm assuming.
Cool, thanks.
Egbayemi?
Hello. So Oprah's referendum this year was a financial-based decision that was highly debated on the SRA. I was just wondering what your takeaways are from the event, or how would you, as VP Finance, address it?
Great question. And this is definitely something that, since I was a part of this experience this past year, that I would like to address in the coming year. I think that there's preventative measures that we can take into account to make sure that this doesn't happen again, simply because I know a lot of this was on the premise of communication errors. So I know that going forward, I would like to task the AVP Finance to make sure that we take that extra step to make connections with the 5 non-MSU, non-university groups even more in advance. So a lot of groups do elect their executive board at the end of the previous school year. So reaching out, hopefully like mid-summer towards the end of the summer, rather than what has currently happened in past years where it's the end of September, will ensure that we are effectively communicating with these groups to ensure that they know what they're accountable for and responsible for. And I think that that's just going to help hopefully alleviate some of these concerns associated with how groups are being reviewed. And then I also think that an additional thing is looking at the structure of our policies and bylaws that are currently in place. And if we do want to make sure that there is room to account for SCI components and those kind of things that are difficult to interpret into our bylaws currently, I think that that's also a step that we could take to ensure there's some flexibility based on like subjectivity of the matter as well.
Awesome, thank you. Singh?
Hello, Jess. I had a question about your platform in relation to your ideas with 1280 and the grind. So you mentioned how there is $2,500 left from a previous deal with Pepsi. You hope to use that in your plan to incentivize students to eat at 1280. Do you think this is enough, or do you hope to gather more funds? And kind of what is your action plan surrounding how to make 1280 actually profitable? Because as of now, just in case anyone doesn't know, the 1280 as a whole does lose money. The grind makes money, but 1280 as a whole, since it's combined, loses money. So I kind of want to know what steps you would take other than just the remaining money in the Pepsi deal to actually incentivize students to go to 1280.
Great question. I'm going to address this in two kind of prongs, essentially. So the first one with regards to the $2,500 that's left over from our existing deal with Pepsi. That's just simply because of the fact that we shifted from Coke loyalty to being Pepsi loyalty. So they incentivized that changeover, obviously. And with that being said, I do think that through my talks with Gabby, who's the restaurant manager at 1280, she would be looking to do similar promotional campaigns, similar to our one this past year, where we gave away an iPhone 10, I believe. And anyone that ordered from the to-go menu was entered into winning this. And her ideas were kind of surrounding maybe doing like a MacBook, which would be even a larger incentive for students to want to engage with our to-go menu. And then in regards to the larger 1280 as a whole, obviously this is a large concern for a lot of people, and it does continue to lose deficit. So I definitely think that through my ideas of implementing a strategic long-term financial stability plan will be key in this. I see, again, similar to, I think Taylor outlined the idea yesterday, the idea of shifting more towards like the Williams Cafe eatery style, just because of this idea that I think that fills a bigger niche on campus. And right now we are competing quite aggressively with the Phoenix, but we are losing out, I think, in a lot of terms because we don't have the same following that they do. So I think through changing our 1280 menu will allow us to move more towards that plant-based diet that a lot of people are interested in, and then cover a new niche that hopefully students will seek value in.
Thank you.
Okay, Giancarlo?
Hey, Jess. You mentioned in your platform that one part of the organizational review you want to work on is vendor management. Could you speak a little bit more to your plan to work on updating and improving our vendor management?
For sure. And that's a really good question. I think the way that I interpreted the vendor management is with regards to our business units specifically. So making sure that they are managed appropriately and effectively in nature. So I think this ties into more of that whole organizational structure that we currently have. So I definitely am interested in working with the VP admin as well as the president in the coming year, and then bringing in Madison Hampel, who is our HR consultant, to make sure that we are establishing clear divides between responsibilities and accountabilities within our full-time staff. And I hope that through doing this, we will have be able to develop a more strategic and comprehensive plan of how we want our business units to be handled and managed. Simply because one of the examples is that some of the job descriptions haven't been updated in such a long period of time that there's currently no real management structure as to who's looking after the grind, because the grind is a more recent expansion and more recent existence of one of our business units. So I think that through effectively looking at how our current management structure works and making sure that everyone is accountable for what they need to be accountable for, and there's no gaps currently within our structure, is going to be how I want to address vendor management in the coming year.
Okay. One moment, please. Hackett.
Hello. There we go. Hello. So my question is, you mentioned in your platform that 1280 and the Underground combined has an accumulated deficit of 1.8 million over the past 4 years. So can you speak specifically to what your plans are for the Underground to make that service more financially stable as your platform talks more about 1280?
Yeah, great question. I think I do have a large focus on the Underground simply because I've had quite a few consultations with Paula Scott, who's the manager and director within the Underground, and she has amazing, valuable experience coming from more of that corporate mindset and corporate background that I think we can really utilize in the coming year. So with that being said, with the Underground, I do think that we need to reassess the front end service just because of the fact that that currently is also filled by the libraries having printing options, as well as MPS is another location that students are able to get their printing done at. So reevaluating there to see if that is one of the contributing factors to our deficit, simply because like if wages cost more than what students are printing, that could be something to look at as well. I do think it's going to be important. Paula has already started pre-planning for creating like kind of a website, because I think that this will be a beneficial step in reaching out to external partners. And I think that externally is definitely going to be our target market, simply because of the fact that that's where we're going to produce our revenue generation. And through consultations with her, I definitely think that that is one of the steps that can be implemented in the summer, and then work on our promotional campaign of that. I also do address the idea of rebuilding the rapport that we used to have with university faculties. I know that this is agreements that we used to have about 2 years ago, and through my discussions with Michael Witter as well as Paula, there seems to be confusion as to who's allowed to utilize these services, and I think we need to stress to the university just how important it is for them to support student services as well.
Awesome, thank you.
Johnson?
Hi, Jess. You and your opponent, Taylor, have opposite plans for how you'd like to address our advertising and sales overall as an organization. You say you'd like to outsource, whereas Taylor says he would like to hire a full-time staff member. Can you please speak to why your idea is better?
Great question. I think that through my consultations that I've had with John McGowan, who's the MSU general manager, there's already been discussions within the executive board of looking to outsource this position, simply because of the fact that it does eliminate a large amount of that overhead cost that's accumulated from salaries and benefits and compensation. And I think that this will obviously be more of an interim solution, just so we can focus on larger priorities surrounding the Underground to make sure they have that foundational component established before we start throwing in more expenses into the mix, essentially. So I definitely think that this will allow us to continue to generate revenue through having our advertising spaces sold. But the only increase to the actual commission base would be about 5 to 7%, as John McGowan told me. So that's not a huge amount, and I definitely think that that can be substantiated in our decision-making process as to why this is a better way to go in the interim.
Okay. Jones? Jones? Okay, it seems Jones isn't able to speak right now. But luckily he did send it. Oh, there he is.
Yeah. So one of the concerns last year I've been looking at with VP Finance was food insecurity. I noticed that like it wasn't really mentioned in your platform, so I was wondering what feasible steps you had in terms of addressing that problem, and what. Yeah. So pretty much that.
Great question. I definitely think that there's room in the coming year to have more collaboration with our services, like the Food Collective Center, to promote more food sustainable initiatives, because through Alex's general MSU review, we did see that a lot of students identified as being food insecure at a point in their undergraduate experience. And I definitely think that rather than currently on my platform, I do address more of a financial uncertainty rather than food security specifically. But I definitely think that would be an idea that I would love to incorporate in the coming year. But in regards to financial uncertainty as a whole, because I think this is more of a overarching theme that we experience, I definitely want to focus on promoting the sponsorship and donations fund, which has been moved up to $10,000. So students are able to continue to engage with extracurriculars and conferences in whatever format they end up being this year. As well as I would love to pilot the campus events financial aid fund that I mentioned. This will help alleviate that financial barrier that's currently in place between students wanting to come out to our events and the costs associated with them. As well as I also address the Welcome Week levy distribution to make sure that a portion of our permanent allocation of this levy is dedicated towards like rep suit bursaries and subsidized 1280 lunches, because this is another huge financial implication that a lot of reps face, especially because they are volunteer based. And I think this is another huge incentive that I would love to add and eliminate the barrier that is currently in place there. And then I would also like to work with the president on figuring out this rep suit rental program to eliminate yet another financial barrier that's currently in place.
Okay, Dehab?
Thank you.
Hi, yeah, I have a question. So a couple of years back at one of the AGMs, the MSU voted to support and endorse BDS, which is the Boycott, Divestment, and Sanctions movement. So the work that came after that was a vendors list that was being checked to look at which products were coming from occupied territories. So I'm wondering what your take on this is and what you're going to do within your role to ensure that we are fully adhering to the requirements of BDS and fully divesting from products.
For sure. And I think this is an interesting question because I know another large aspect that a lot of people are interested in talking about is like divestments in general from unsustainable sources and making sure that we're not utilizing them inappropriately. And I think that in the coming year, I would love to gain more information on this topic because I am going to be honest, I don't know that much about what happened at the General Assembly a couple of years back. So I would love to have further consultations to ensure that we are adhering to the agreements that we have put in forth and put in motion, essentially. And then speaking in general to divestments, I just think it's going to be important in the coming year to create a plan and talk to our like financial investors to ensure that we are creating essentially a long-term plan for how we plan to deviate away from these unsustainable resources. Because I know that a lot of students are on board with the sustainability initiative, and I am a huge sustainability advocate myself. And I would love to work with the VP Education to make sure that we are advocating heavily based on this, but also making sure that we have a feasible implementation strategy going forward as to how we can do this, especially because everything is quite uncertain at the moment. So I definitely think that making more of a plan and then looking at how we can slowly divest is going to be the best option going forward. I hope that addressed that concern. Sorry.
Miranda?
Hi. A lot of folks have mentioned that you and the other candidate have different approaches to MSU revenue generators and revenue generation as a whole. What would you say the benefits of your approach are, and how would you prioritize your various proposed changes?
Great question. I definitely think that I have more of a focus on how our current structure is not working the most effectively that it should be, and how we should address this in the coming years. So I think that comparatively to just implementing student positions, which are amazing, and I definitely see the value in them, I think it's more of a structural issue that we are experiencing within our business units to make sure that we're better aligning with where students seek value in our services is going to be a large implementation strategy in the coming year. Because if we're not aligning with that, that's definitely going to impede on our ability to generate revenue. And speaking specifically, one of the largest differences I find is within Compass. So this is a revenue neutral business unit. So it's not meant to generate any revenue, but it's also not meant to generate any deficit. So I think that rather than trying to implement more things that we can sell there, essentially, I do think that students will seek a larger value in incorporating our services so that they're able to outreach further to students, and then making sure that we fulfill the need that's currently possessed by campus, whether that be HSR support, Presto support, as well as MSU information, and making sure that we incorporate from the organizational recommendation the idea of like these e-kiosks. I think that's a really cool appearance, and then students will also really benefit from this because they can still gain access to loading their Prestos as well as MSU information, but we will no longer be generating a deficit there, which will be awesome.
Okay. Nakua?
So hi, just in terms of the topic of transparency, this is a two-part question. So do you think that there's any, in terms of transparency in the MSU, is that there's anything that needs to be done? If there is, what would it be? And if there's not, would there be, like, if there's any problem with transparency, what would be the solution to it? And if there's not, would there be any, is there anything else we could do to be more transparent with the students?
Great question. I definitely outlined the necessity for transparency within the organization. I think in past years, there's been quite a large focus on financial transparency, and I definitely want to continue these forward. So implementing and continuing what Alex started this year with the September and January financial transparency weeks, I think is very beneficial, but making sure that these are also accessible online will be helpful in the coming year. And then overall, our organizational transparency, definitely something that I want to address and something that I try to touch on into the platform point of the idea of incorporating board of director video updates. This will hopefully alleviate some of that concern that students have with wondering what these mysterious people essentially are doing with student allocated funding towards our salaries. So I definitely think that through having monthly updates by the board of directors, this will accentuate this idea of like a face of the MSU. Students are much more likely to engage with someone that they recognize and someone that they can attribute an idea to. So I think that through having this board be more accountable and be able to substantiate their decisions on video promotions will be very beneficial going forward. So just an example of this would be speaking to what plans that you are working on and what initiatives you're working on, so students are able to engage effectively with our ideas and give their own ideas as well and collaborate further. I think this will hopefully further engage students into wanting to voice their opinions. And then I think that from this, the next step could be incorporating the SRA into video updates as well.
Johnson?
Hi, Jess. I'm just trying to hopefully get at a little bit more of an understanding of why you think your ideas are better than your opponent, specifically when it comes to 1280 and the underground. You both seem to have very conflicting plans. So can you just speak on why you think yours are better?
Yeah, for sure. I think this is a really good question. So when looking at the underground specifically, I know comparatively to my counterpart, obviously the first aspect is myself wanting to contract the campus and community partnership coordinator position to eliminate those large overhead costs. So I think in regards to general strategy, I'm trying to limit our spending so that we can build a foundation and work towards our strategic planning for the long-term financial stability of our organization. And then essentially making sure that we have cautious steps as to what our next plan should be, rather than simply jumping into creating new positions, which I think there is value in, but I definitely just don't think that that is the priority right now. Just like speaking from 2019, the underground did experience $300,000 in deficit. So I definitely think that mitigating this deficit first is going to be the largest task that we're going to undertake in the coming year, and rebuilding these partnerships with university faculties and external clientele will lend us to a better route forward in how we're going to produce more revenue. And then with regards to 1280 and the grind, I definitely think that we should be utilizing our student staff simply because the grind, as we've all noticed, does amazingly every single year that it's been open. So trying to incorporate this through to 1280, and I have had conversations with Gabby, the restaurant manager, and she's had conversations with her staff that they are all open and willing to do this. And then just making sure that we're filling the niche that students seek value in. And that's why I speak to the idea of incorporating more plant-based options at 1280 as well.
Okay. And that is the end of our question period for Jess. Thank you so much. Just give me a second. Taylor left the chat and asked me to let him know when he was back in. So I'm just shooting an email to reach out to him. And I accidentally closed my mail instead of sending the mail. So that'll take just a moment on my end. I apologize.
No problem. Thank you for your questions.
There we go. Okay. So Taylor should be joining us shortly. So everything on my end. Hello, Taylor, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Perfect. Okay, is everything ready on your end?
Yes, I am.
Okay, I will be giving you a 10-second countdown. Would you like any more countdowns when you're answering your questions?
I'm sorry, point of clarification. Is it minute 30 or minute for short answer?
It's a minute 30.
Minute 30. Okay, perfect. 10 will be great then.
Okay. And I will be opening the speakers list. And Johnson, you can go first whenever you're ready.
Sorry, a delay with mute. Hi, Taylor. Overall, platform ideas are actually pretty expensive. I estimate overall most of your ideas to cost around $100,000. So given the MSU's run in an operating fund deficit for the last couple of years, and the uncertainty surrounding next year with the Student Choice Initiative, as well as COVID-19, how can you justify such a large spending?
For sure, great question. So this budget, my platform was taking into the capital budget of 2021 as well too when it came to formulation. So when it came to the POS system and the website, those are already things that are on the queue when it comes to the capital budget. So the SRA, you guys will have the chance to vote on this budget. So obviously I will not act on those platform points if you guys do not approve of the budget, of course. When it comes to new capital spending, I've calculated that it would be the Compass screens and certain capital funding for 1280, and that will come out to roughly about 6% of the remaining capital based off my estimates. Of course, the 1280 and the Compass will be intertwined with whatever strategy plan that we're going as well too. So both Jess and I will be releasing strategies. So in those strategies, we will also be talking about capital allocation. And I think also the MSU financially is very liquid. We don't have a lot of liabilities. We don't have a lot of, really the main concern is our locked into long-term liability is being locked into those printer leases. So ultimately we're in a pretty liquid state. Great question.
Hackett?
Hello. Okay. So a number of your platform points overlap with the priority areas in the other VP portfolios. So how do you plan to complete the points laid out in your platform without stepping on the toes of the rest of the board members?
For sure. So from my knowledge of being a PTM and my relationship with past VPs, I know BODs tend to be very democratic and internally voting on things. So maintaining that as well too. When it comes to specific points that are co-relating, I believe in a co-determination approach where both parties say yes. So that way, if, for example, the VP admin thinks I'm overstepping and they say, and Vika says no, then we're not going to do it. If Fazia says the same thing, that's what's going to happen. So, and same with John Carlo as well too. And I really look forward to his support in implementing business unit ideas. So 2 yeses or it's a no. So.
Miranda?
Hello. So in your platform, you indicated that you want to prioritize the hiring of a number of different positions. How will you ensure that you also prioritize the need for the development and improvement of roles, organizational structure, and departments as a whole, while hiring these additional team members, either based on or with old or previously existing job descriptions?
For sure. So the two, just speaking to the first point about the roles I'm thinking of adding on, it's based off of the 1280 and the grind promotions coordinator that was hired 2 years ago. And we can see this year with the improvement in 1280 sales based off of this year's performance, that this is a model that works and fits into our decentralized communication model. So the two positions I mentioned would go on that. That being said, I'm also open to the idea of having a business unit promotions coordinator or a SOP position as well too. I think we have to look also at the KPMG report that I, if elected as VP Finance, would have access to, and kind of keeping that in mind when it comes to what promotional intake we're doing, because I think I definitely see the need for more human resources and looking at business units management, because I think right now John McGowan, the general manager, seems stretched pretty thin as well too. So I think this is from an outside perspective, a first take. And from looking at that report and critically engaging with it, we'd be able to critically reflect on that and then act on it accordingly.
Adeyemi?
Aren't I next? Sorry.
I have Adeyemi on my end because of the way that messages work. Whatever I see first is how it goes.
Okay. Yeah, sure.
Hey, Taylor. Just wondering if you can speak to why you believe your plans for BUs such as the Underground and 1280 are stronger than your opponents.
For sure. Well, I definitely believe in telling a narrative, and I think we can see that with how I've talked about 1280 and Union Market, two out of 3 business units, that we need to tell a story and we need to tell a narrative because our MSU brand has been getting outflanked by McMaster, quite frankly, with their Brighter World campaign. So we have to talk about that we are David and McMaster is the Goliath. They're giant. They do, they have the prime locations, 100% catering, and we need to talk about how the history of it. I really love this point that me and the humanities reps were talking, and Haley brought up this point about talking about student unionism. And I think 1280 has a long history of providing food for all and providing a community space. So I think we really need to capitalize on that narrative. And for example, we talked about looking at having the hallway, having like a new display, essentially talking about the history, talking about how it used to be called Nichols, how now it's called 1280, and wherever we take 1280 in the grind, that we're communicating that as well too. And I think, my Union Market plan, I think, is capitalizing on our opponents and their inability to have promotion. So Tim Hortons is a franchise. Our franchises are owned by Hospitality Services. They are not doing Tim Hortons rewards points. So they are not doing roll up the rim. And they're moving towards a point system.
Thank you. It's all good. Singh?
Hello, Taylor. Hope you're doing well. I just had a quick question about the SIL. You stated that you hope to get a federal subsidy that will be in relation to the COVID-19 crisis, and this will help to fund a summer job at the SIL. So I understand that the current VP Finance has introduced quite a few new measures to rein in, I guess, what could be described as excessive spending to some extent at the SIL with printing. So I kind of want to get your thoughts on what you will do to continue that at the SIL, and also if the economic subsidies are less than what is expected, how will you adapt to that and still be able to deliver on the ideas you've promised, even if we have less money coming in from the federal government?
For sure. So just on the point of the summer job, that's been applied for by the outgoing editor-in-chief. And so there's also, with the COVID, the federal jobs have moved up to 100% subsidy, but they might be moving to part-time depending on the job as well too. So of course, as I'm not VP Finance currently, I do not know where the application is, but there is COVID measures from the federal government to make it 100% subsidy. Additionally, because we're moving to monthly print instead of two semesters ago, it was weekly. This semester it was bi-weekly, and now we're moving to monthly. But the funding and the move to the online needs to be spending for. So we can't just make sure that we cut their printing budget without increasing their online. And I think financially, when it comes to me hiring the campus commercial partnership coordinator and looking at online sales and online advertising sales, we have to look making sure that the website is graphically great and that our vendors are happy with the advertising space. So great question.
Thank you.
Sai?
Hey, Taylor. I was just going to mention that you mentioned that a lot of your platform points are dependent on the upcoming budget plan that the SRA will be approving of and working with other VPs, and you're laying over with a lot of other VPs' scopes. Do you have any platform points that you're completely confident can be completed despite these factors? And can you speak a little bit on them, on how you plan to complete them?
For sure. I think just zooming out on the VP Finance role, we have to look at what they're doing, and they're very much interacting and overseeing a lot of folks. So essentially, I'd be folks' managers. But when it comes to it, I think anything internally can be done relatively simply. Like, I think leaders will love, so tackling food insecurity and looking at how we communicate 1280s to the grind space to other services can be done quite easily. I think updating the campus, catering event furniture and the 1280, I think makes sense under both strategies that I presented. And yeah, I think AODA compliance is essential, I think, especially because it adds a benefit to non-student revenue. So we work with a lot of McMaster clientele and also external clientele. So Underground being able to provide the AODA compliance and making sure that our clients are not getting sued because they're not doing AODA compliance, I think is super, super essential. So looking at both that for the Underground team and the marketing communication team, so that way we can be crystal clear about that.
Aoyan?
Yeah, hi Taylor. I want to ask. Oh, sorry, a little noise. I want to ask on how you plan to make evidence-based decisions regarding your long-term plans of Union Market and 1280. So for Union Market, you do mention you want to do the $1 reusable mug program, but that doesn't is that. I'm not sure if that's like a longer-term plan that you have. In terms of 1280, you did mention you have 2 strategies, and you will have to be deciding between one. So I just want to know how you plan on making these decisions.
For sure. So just on the first point of Union Market, we have POS sales data. Our cashiers know that. And so we can look at kind of weekly sales and look at as specific as possible. So looking at data points first and foremost. Secondly, looking at and talking to outgoing employees as well too, I could see being a benefit because I think they observe a lot and they know their customers better than anyone else. So we can look at that as well too. When it comes to Union Market, that hard data, and it'd be looking at either piloting for a month or 2 months, depending on the kind of calculation when it comes to knowing the cost per coffee. So whatever the typical to-go mug size is, we have to look at how much it's going to cost. So that's for Union Market. For 1280, basically, I have an issue, and as VP Finance, if we keep the 2 units as separate units, of making them 2 separate business units when it comes to the accounting. I think this year Alex has put in a measure for cafe sales, but we don't know a lot of the costs or how the costs are being shared. So we don't have a great way of actually comparing this unit individually. So, maybe there is, and I just can't see it from the outside, but just looking at the account codes, I'm not privy to that. So I'd be working with this Director of Finance, Sean, to look at how we can break it down between the 2 units. That's all my time.
Okay, Johnson?
Hi, Taylor. My next question pertains to what was written in your platform about our third-party consultancy review that we did this. I'm just wondering, since the report is not currently public, why you think your assumptions are valid. So yeah.
For sure. So I wrote my platform, basically, I finished it after consulting Shamar last Saturday, which was the 11th. And then the public report was released on the 13th. So, definitely the melodrama was there if you read the platform a little bit. But I think what I knew from my consultations with yourself and other full-time employees is that we were looking at revenue generation costs savings as well too. McMaster, as we all know, is not in the resources industry, doesn't have a lot of capital. So just based off of 4 years of accounting, I know, and knowing what kind of the services are strategically and what we do, besides the food department, our biggest expense is probably going to be wages because we don't own a lot of capital, quite frankly. So when it comes to expenses, wages are the highest. And that's just from accounting knowledge. So that's the logic I got from cost reduction and only knowing that the MSU model is paying wages, which is fair, right? These are people's jobs and incomes, right? So that's why I made that assumption there about the wages. Now that I know and read the report, very much is talking about filling the gaps and internal issues. And I'm very much looking forward to, if elected, reading it, critically reflecting on it, and applying it. And I think like human resources is something we really need to do after we have like 250 employees and hundreds, if not thousands, of volunteers. Human resources is an area of focus of mine for sure.
Okay, Johnson.
Hello again. So my next question is about the current closure the MSU is experiencing pertaining to COVID. So if COVID-19 closures continue to persist, as a board, you'll likely have to consider laying off certain staff. What processes would you take to make the decision?
For sure. So definitely it would be a part of a bigger conversation with the board of directors to ensure that we're getting a holistic lens and we're not, when it comes to which roles we're talking about, obviously a consultation with the person and looking long-term and short-term when it comes to our findings, past historical financial performances. I think it's super important to make sure we get the whole picture and the entirety when it comes to all the different priorities of VPs and when it comes to all the priorities of different services and business units. So I'll recognize that we need to do this, and to be sustainable and serve our communities and create opportunities, we have to make some tough calls, and I'm willing to make those tough calls. But for me, it's looking at the longevity of it and the entirety of it before making any decision. So from there, we'd go for the HR process, which involves discussion and talking about severance as well too, would also be a part of that conversation because we'd be firing them. So there are some upfront costs that we have to weigh into that calculation as well too. So yeah, great question.
Hackett?
Yeah. So this year, the board was faced with challenges when it came to our club system, student choice initiative, as well as COVID-19, which all took up a significant amount of our time, as well as none of it was explicitly laid out within our platforms. So what are your plans to ensure the points laid out in your platform get completed while also giving yourself time to adjust for the issues that sporadically present themselves throughout the year?
Wait, Shamar, are you saying that you guys didn't expect an unprecedented global infection disease to go everywhere? Like,
Unfortunately not.
Sorry, to answer your question seriously though, we have to look at relationships. And as we talked about earlier, when it comes to what can we do independently, we have to, those things are pretty easily to happen, but we have to look at relationships. And as the board of directors, we are overseeing and working with full-time staff to make sure it's sustainable development, especially with SCI. Even though it's unlikely that this year will happen, we still have to prepare and think about our finances in terms of if SCI is appealed or if it's SCI 2.0 happens with a Doug Ford government. So I definitely see those things coming up, but it's mostly about collaboration, working with full-time staff to make sure that that there's some equal respect and mutual agreement on the idea, and that we can execute it accordingly. So that way, because the only constant in life is change, we can be ready for change in that way.
Okay, Egbayemi?
Hello again. You and your opponent have a lot of similar business units in mind, Compass, Underground 1280, but you have some unique points about Survivors Fund, volunteer appreciation, etc. How do you think your unique platform points make your platform stronger as a whole?
For sure. I think we talk a lot about communication, and I think we talk a lot about, you know, from business lens, we can look at the MSU branding and look at that. But I think SCI has given us a chance to critically reflect on how we're being perceived by students. And I think the opt-out rates show that as well too. So when it comes to like the Survivors Fund and looking at how we engage with volunteers and divestment of our financial portfolio ourselves, we can look at providing other VPs and the president with kind of leverages when it comes to advocacy. So that's me handing it off to them and letting them move forward with it. But I also think we have to really if we are reducing our services and we have to rescind services, and especially if SEI is appealed, if we do have to rescind services, looking at where are areas that the MSU needs to heal our relationship with the community, and looking at ways we can double down so that way. I'm really excited about Avika being the VP admin because I think my volunteer con idea and her training go really well together, and we can make it like a, as you know, as we talked about, like a volunteer like con with all the training in it, and then like have a volunteer fest at the end of the year, so that way we can celebrate the whole journey kind of together. So I think we have to look at healing, we have to look at making coherence between the VP roles, and that's why I think like co-determination and decision-making is important. Thank you.
Mirando?
Hi.
Hi.
So regarding your point on the Ad Hoc Online Service Delivery and Mental Health Committee, currently we do have many committees surrounding mental health, including the Student Mental Health and Wellbeing Advisory Committee, Student Wellness Center Advisory Committee, EDI Steering Committee, Student Services Advisory Committee, and a few others, which currently fall within either the VP Education or the President's portfolio. And they speak on different mental health services on campus, including a student assistance plan. So I'm just curious how this committee might differ from these committees and ensure that we will see some tangible change and improvement given the similarity in scope.
For sure. So great point. I feel like, so I've changed this after my conversation with Shamar after hearing about all those councils, and really reduced the scope of it. So it's specifically looking at online service delivery, which is a COVID issue. But I think COVID is also recognizing our communities are, being home and losing that independence will take a toll on your mental health. If you can't be out at home, that will take a toll on your mental health. And, if you live under the patriarchy, like we all do, like that's going to take a toll on your family. So we have to look at how we are doing administratively, not advocacy, how we're administrating programs to folks during COVID. So this is really much looking within the services. Right now, I know Maxis is doing online support groups. They did it the first week of COVID. So looking at how that went and looking at working with PTMs and the VP admin to and have SRA members who really want to engage with this to then be a part of this process of online service delivery. Secondly, we have to think post-COVID because we will get through this, and we have to look at how we're reaching folks who are going through a really bad mental health period or living with a mental illness. How are we reaching out to those folks for support groups post-COVID? I think is a huge issue without having some type of online service besides SAP. We have to look at how our services are reaching out to folks.
Okay. And that is the end of our question period. So I'd like to thank Taylor for giving me this time for the individualized questions. It can be stressful. And then now we're going to be ending on with our closing remarks. So are you here, Jess?
Yes, sorry.
Not a problem. Just wanted to make sure you're here. The person who will be going first for closing will be you, Taylor, just because we go reverse alphabetical order. Taylor, would you like any other warnings with your other than that?
It's 5 minutes.
Yes.
Can I grab a 30 seconds and a 10 seconds?
Okay. Whenever you're ready.
Sorry, one moment, folks. The suspense. Alrighty. First, I want to thank all of the SRA members for the meaningful conversations and opening up your Zoom, Skype, and your Facebook video chats to me. The ideas you've experienced and the perspectives you carry will bring you forward, and I'm really excited about that. Second, I want to thank Jessica Anderson. The VP election process works best when ideas and perspectives are brought into the fold, so I'm very thankful for the strong debate of ideas, so thank you, Jess. Third, I want to thank those who have consulted, so John Carlo, Alex Johnstone, Scott Robinson, John McGowan, Michael Wooder, Victoria Scott, Paula Scott, no relation, and Gabby Rimpola. While I have been called new and a quote outsider to the MSU, quite frankly, I'm not in some way. Rather, I like to consider myself to be fresh. I have met some people, some of these people from 2 to 3 years ago and some for longer. Some I've just met, specifically Alex, Paula, and Gabby. They're all making the MSU a great place to be, and I'm very thankful for them. So I'm old and new in some ways because I've experienced a little bit of burnout after being the director of an MSU service. As I mentioned in my opening presentation, from being the MSU Food Collective Center director, that was no different of an experience. During my time, I had to lead 6 executives in weekly meetings, hire and train 40 volunteers, double the amount of steady, sustainable programming and services that we offered, which led to an 80% service increase in usage, and we were 20% under our discretionary budget. It sounds exhausting going back, but while I was reflecting on this in the context of COVID-19, we know that food insecurity is growing rampant within our own communities. The food banks that are still open have less volunteers and less donations. Yet they still they're still here and they're still serving their community. I believe we need that type of resilience right now. My platform was the first attempt to think about food insecure people on campus and ensuring the financial stability of the MSU. So that way FCC can continue to operate, and we actually are expanding the Ladles of Love program to provide more food security. Then I thought about all the survivors at MAC too, and through consultation with the Outgoing with Gen coordinator, we brainstormed the Survivors Fund. And next, I thought about the volunteers, which are the blood for our operations and how most people engage with our services and clubs, who got hit hard with an OSAP cat. And we want to make sure that we're providing them with the jobs and opportunities to serve other students, keeping to our for student by student brand. And all the employees who have worked hard for the MSU, yet are not engaged for the bright students that they are. My brainstorming and discussion session will provide critical feedback on our business strategy, so that way we can move both short-term and long-term pieces and have a really solid feedback mechanism. So my platform was the first attempt to still serve these communities. I believe my platform is the most tangible and concrete in terms of new short-term ideas. I've treated the SRA as intellectually honest as possible and engaging with these new ideas head on. In continuity with that intellectual honesty, if given the privilege of being your VP Finance, we would have to take drastic actions. When it comes to the 1280 strategy, which I presented, and making decisions regarding the underground print shop and going on the offense with Union Market. I believe my 4 years of business school and intimate accounting knowledge is what we need right now. And after critical evaluation, using the KPMG report and applying the benefits to our internal organization structure, since any VP Finance will have access to this information. Through my time as being the director of the Food Collective Center, I've delivered services to hundreds, if not thousands of students who are already and engaging with them on a personal level. I'm ready to serve you and your community as your VP Finance of the MSU. Thank you so much, guys.
Wonderful. And Jess, you're up. Are there any warnings that you'd like me to give you? Am I muted? No, I can't hear you, Jess.
No,
there
sorry,
we go.
I had to find the button. Sorry.
Not a problem.
And I don't think I need any warnings in all honesty. I don't want to take up too much of their time because they've already been on this for so long.
Okay.
So hi, everyone. It has honestly been such a pleasure of mine meeting all of you over the past couple of weeks, and I greatly appreciate the amount of feedback and additions to my platform each of you were able to provide. Additionally, thank you to Taylor. He's been an amazing competitor throughout this whole process, and he has a great amount of points that I would love to bring forward as well and incorporate into my platform should I be chosen going forward. I'm so excited to see all of you represent your constituents in the coming year and continue to add value to the student experience. Just from the conversations I've been privy to have with most of you, you all have amazing ideas for the up and coming year. I hope that through this position, I'm able to create a strategic plan for the long-term financial stability of our organization in hopes that we can continue to offer the amazing services and value that we provide to students. To accomplish this, I truly believe as an organization, we need to focus on how we plan to adapt our current service offerings, such as 1280 in the underground, to better suit the student needs, reduce our deficits, increase our revenue streams, and shift towards the implementation of more effective business units that students truly see value in. Through my platform, I believe I address the first steps that are necessary in order to bring this vision of our business units to life. This past year, the board of directors took many, many steps towards bettering the future of the MSU and establishing a synergy across various facets of the organization. I believe that through utilizing the organizational review recommendations and implementing my platform points, we will be able to address how we are operating internally, make these decisions more effective and efficient in nature, And then through these revisions, as an organization, we will be in a better position to support our students and provide them with the value they want to obtain from our students' union. I think that through my experience as the Associate Vice President of Finance this past year and chairing the Finance Committee with 10 members, as well as the Sponsorships and Donations Committee with 6 committee members, as well as a budget line of $7,500, I've learned how to more effectively communicate and collaborate with my peers, substantiate my decision and spending allocations with student money, and just communicate in a professional and productive working environment. Thank you everyone for listening to myself and all of the other candidates for the last 10 plus hours over the course of 2 days. I believe I can speak on behalf of all of us that we truly appreciate the amount of time you've dedicated towards this process. It is definitely not easy in any regard. I hope that in just a few short minutes, when you email in your ballots, you can consider choosing me for Vice President of Finance for the 2020-2021 year, so we can work together this coming year and make our visions of the MSU a reality. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Wow, and now we're done. How does that feel? Woo! We have one more election left, and this is the last chance. I want to see 0 spoiled ballots. I'll explain the ballots one more time after we do the eligibility vote. So as y'all will know the drill, make sure you say that you're here, or make a message that you're here so that you're able to vote and I'm able to go and mark you off. So we're going to start with Danielle Emily.
Here.
Christy Young.
Here.
Bagtassos.
Here.
Vague.
Here.
Birch.
Here.
Chopra. Manpreet. Manpreet Chopra. Going once. Manpreet. Okay. Dewey.
Here.
Dehab.
Here.
Silva.
Here.
Del Castillo.
Here.
Vadova.
Here.
Insa.
Here.
Dixit.
Yeah. Yeah, here. Thank you.
Igbayemi.
Here.
I'm just going to ask that if you're done speaking, you mute because I can hear background noise and it's a little distracting. Figueredo.
Here.
Lupski. Godlupski. Damien. Damien Godlupski. Okay. Hackett.
Sorry, hey.
Johnson.
Here.
Jones.
Here.
Bosak.
Here.
Mambetta Lavinda. Mirando.
Here.
Messick.
Here.
Nakua.
Here.
Patel. Patel.
Here.
Okay. Just give me one more second. Sampson.
Here.
Sarlaslani.
Here.
Seymour.
Here.
Singh.
Did you say sing?
Yes, I did.
I'm here.
Smith. Stefokos.
Here.
Bind.
Here.
Sai.
Here.
Violin.
Yes, I'm here.
And Wang.
Here.
And if Damien and Manpreet are here, please let me know so that you are able to vote. And this is the final vote. I'm going to say this one more time because please, I want to see 0 spoiled ballots, as in zero. Remember, Once you send in your ballot, that is the ballot you send. Think of it this way. Once you click and send, you put the ballot in the metaphorical bucket. You can't then run, take your vote out of the bucket and change it. So once you send it, that is your first ballot. You only get one chance to send it. So make sure that that what you send is what you mean to send, because regardless if you send something to edit, we cannot take that. We can only take the thing that you sent in first. We have two choices for vice president's finance. You are able to rank them, so you can put one person, you can put two people, or you can put or you can abstain and put no people. You can also specifically no confidence a specific person or all people if you want to. But remember, if you abstain, the only thing you should have there is